The stars looked peaceful through the bridge windows of the UHSF Prometheus. Commander Sarah Chen stood with her arms crossed, watching her crew work at their stations. They were far from Earth, testing their new ship in the Kepler's Edge Nebula. The colorful gas clouds made pretty backgrounds for their weapon tests. All systems running smooth, Commander. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb reported from his station. He was a big man with grease stains on his uniform that never seemed to wash out. The new railgun is charging faster than the simulations predicted. Sarah nodded. The Prometheus was humanity's first real warship, built without asking permission from the Galactic Coalition. For 2 years, humans had been junior members of the galaxy's big government. 2 years of being patted on the head like children. 2 years of other species laughing at human technology. They think our computers are toys, Tactical Officer Emma Rodriguez muttered, adjusting her displays. The Vrex ambassador called our ship charmingly primitive last month. Let them laugh, Sarah said. We're not here to impress anyone. We're here to make sure this ship works when we need it. The Prometheus carried 200 crew members. Most were young, eager to prove humanity belonged among the stars. They had trained for 8 months learning every system, every backup, every possible failure point. Sarah had insisted on it. Her grandfather had been a pilot back when planes had manual controls. He always said the same thing. Trust your tools, but never trust them completely. Commander, I'm picking up something. Lieutenant James Park called from the sensor station. Multiple FTL signatures incoming fast. Sarah's stomach tightened. How many? 12 contacts. They're big. Warship class. Park's voice stayed calm, but his fingers moved faster across his controls. They're dropping out of FTL now. The view screen changed, and Sarah felt ice run down her spine. 12 ships appeared around them in a perfect attack formation. Each one was 3 times the size of the Prometheus. Their hulls were dark red and covered in weapon ports. Sarah recognized the design immediately. Vrex Empire Battle Group, she said quietly. Red alert. Battle stations, alarms screamed through the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. Sarah dropped into her command chair, her mind racing. The Vrex were reptilian warriors, aggressive and cruel. They were part of the coalition, but everyone knew they bent the rules. Still, this was insane. Attacking another coalition member without warning was absolutely forbidden. They're hailing us, Rodriguez said. Put them through. A face appeared on the screen. The Vrex admiral had green scales and yellow eyes that looked like a snake's. His mouth opened to show rows of sharp teeth in what passed for a smile among his species. Human vessel. The admiral hissed. Your primitive technology ends here. This will be quick. What are you doing? Sarah demanded. We're both coalition members. This is an act of war. War requires equals, the Vrex replied. You are merely test subjects. The coalition will believe this was a tragic accident. Your species is too new, too weak to matter. The screen went dead. Commander, they're charging weapons, Park reported. Wait, they're charging something else. Energy signature is off the charts. I've never seen anything like. The universe turned white. Every light on the Prometheus died at once. The gentle hum of the engine stopped. The air circulation fans went silent. Sarah felt her stomach lurch as artificial gravity disappeared and she started floating out of her chair. Report, she shouted into the darkness. Nothing. The communication system was dead too. Emergency lights should have kicked in after 3 seconds. They didn't. Sarah counted to 10 in the pitch black, hearing her crew breathing hard around her. Someone was crying softly. Another person was praying in Spanish, then a voice cut through the dark. Marcus Webb, shouting from somewhere in the back of the bridge. They hit us with an EMP. Everything electrical is fried. Everything! Sarah grabbed her chair to stop herself from floating away. An EMP weapon strong enough to shut down a starship completely was banned by every coalition treaty. The Vrex had just used one anyway. They planned to board the ship, kill everyone, and blame it on a system failure. No witnesses, no evidence, no consequences. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Every system fails eventually, Sarah. The question is what you do when it happens. Webb, she called into the darkness. Do we have anything? Anything at all? A pause. Then Webb's voice came back, and Sarah heard something in it that made her heart beat faster. Not fear, excitement. Commander, they shut down our computers. They fried our electrical systems. But this ship was designed by paranoid humans who've been breaking down in space for 300 years. We've got manual overrides. We've got mechanical backups. We've got systems that don't need electricity at all. Sarah felt a fierce grin spread across her face in the darkness. The Vrex thought they were so advanced, so superior. They had forgotten something important. Humans had been building machines since before they left Earth. They knew every machine could break. They planned for it. "Listen up," Sarah called out to her crew, her voice carrying through the silent bridge. "The Vrex think we're helpless. They think we'll panic and die in the dark. They're wrong. We're going to restart this ship the hard way. We're going to show them why humans still carry tools and know how to use them." She pulled herself to the navigation station and felt around until she found what she needed. A sealed compartment clicked open. Inside was a chemical light stick, the kind campers used on Earth. She cracked it and green light filled the bridge. In that pale glow, Sarah saw her crew looking at her. Young faces, scared faces, but also determined faces. "Gentlemen, ladies," Sarah said. "We're going old school. Time to show them why humans still carry axes on our ships. Webb, get your team to engineering. I want manual power restoration. Rodriguez, break out the weapons locker. Park, find me anyone who remembers how to navigate by the stars." As her crew moved into action, Sarah heard the hull groan. The Vrex were cutting through, preparing to board. They thought they were cutting into a tomb. They were about to learn different. Marcus Webb floated through the maintenance shaft with a wrench in one hand and a light stick in the other. Behind him, 6 engineers followed in a line, each carrying tools that didn't need batteries. The shaft was barely wide enough for a human body, and it was completely dark except for their chemical lights. "There," Webb said, pointing at a junction box ahead. "That's the first manual override point." Engineer Rita Santos squeezed past him to reach the box. She pulled out a screwdriver and started removing bolts. Not magnetic screws that computers could control. Regular old-fashioned bolts that required muscle and patience. The Vrex would never design a ship like this, Rita muttered as she worked. "Too inefficient. Too primitive." "That's why we're going to win," Webb replied. The bolt came free and the panel swung open. Inside was a mechanical switch the size of a fist. Rita grabbed it with both hands and pulled. Nothing happened. She pulled harder, muscles straining. The switch finally moved with a loud clunk that echoed through the shaft. Somewhere deep in the ship, a backup battery clicked on. It was small, designed only for emergencies, but it was something. A few lights flickered to life in the maintenance areas. "One down," Webb said. 47 to go, move." On the bridge, Sarah heard the hull groan again. The Vrex cutting beams were almost through. Lieutenant Park had found a paper star chart in the emergency supplies. He was actually using a compass and ruler to figure out where they were, methods that hadn't been common for 200 years. "How long until they breach?" Sarah asked. 3 minutes, Rodriguez answered. She had opened the weapons locker and was passing out guns and gear. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. The guns were special. Magnetic accelerator rifles that used springs and electromagnetic coils. They needed electricity to be effective, but they could still fire basic rounds using pure mechanical force, like really fancy crossbows mixed with old powder rifles. "Marines, get to breach points Alpha through Delta," Sarah ordered. "Use anything that works. If it doesn't need electricity, it's our friend right now." Lieutenant James Park commanded the ship's Marine detachment. He was a tall man with scars from 3 different border conflicts. He grabbed a rifle and checked it with practiced hands. Then he picked up something else from the locker and grinned. "Is that an axe?" Sarah asked. "Fire axe," Park confirmed. "Every human ship carries them. Fire suppression requirement from the old days. But an axe doesn't care if the power is on or off." He led his Marines out of the bridge at a run. The ship had gravity again in some sections as Webb's team brought systems online one by one. In other areas, Marines pulled themselves along walls in zero gravity, weapons ready. The first breach came at Airlock 7. The Vrex cutting beam punched through the hull with a shower of sparks. Atmosphere started venting until emergency seals slammed shut. They were mechanical seals, spring-loaded, designed to close even if every computer was dead. 3 Vrex warriors came through the hole. They were big, almost 7 feet tall, covered in scales and battle armor. They carried plasma rifles and energy shields. Their helmets had advanced targeting computers that could see in the dark and track multiple enemies at once. Park's Marines waited in the shadows on either side of the breach. They had no computers, no targeting systems, no advanced shields. What they had was patience learned from hunting animals on Earth for thousands of years. The Vrex moved into the corridor, confident and slow. Their sensors showed no active weapons, no powered systems. The corridor appeared empty. Park stepped out behind them and swung his axe. The blade hit the first Vrex in the back of the neck, right in the gap where armor plates met. Titanium cut through scales and spine. The alien went down without a sound. His companions spun around, raising their weapons. Marines fired from both sides. Magnetic rounds hammered into Vrex shields. The shields held against the first shots, calibrated to stop high-energy plasma and laser weapons. But the magnetic rounds kept coming. Simple metal moving fast, and shields designed for energy weapons struggled with solid projectiles. One Vrex fired his plasma rifle. The bolt lit up the corridor and punched through a Marine's shoulder. She screamed but kept firing. Another Marine threw a knife. Just a combat knife, the kind soldiers had carried for centuries. It slipped past the energy shield like the shield wasn't there and buried itself in a Vrex eye. The aliens had never fought an enemy that used such primitive weapons. Their training, their tactics, their equipment all assumed a certain level of technology. They were confused, and confusion in combat is deadly. Park shot the last Vrex 3 times in the chest. The alien's armor cracked. He fell, and Park hit him once more with the axe to be sure. "Breach 7 secure," Park reported into his radio. He was surprised when it worked. Some systems were coming back online. In engineering, Webb and his team reached the main reactor room. It was a massive space filled with pipes and conduits in the huge cylindrical shape of the ship's power core. Usually it glowed with blue light and hummed with contained fusion reactions. Now it was dark and silent. "We need to manually restart the core," Webb said. "But there's a problem." "Only one problem?" Rita asked. "That's good for us. The safety systems are offline. If we restart the core without them, and we get the sequence wrong, the containment field will fail. The whole ship will vaporize." The team stared at him. "How long do we have?" Rita asked. Webb checked his mechanical watch. "Based on the hull damage sounds, the Vrex will be all over the ship in 10 minutes. If we don't have power by then, we're dead anyway. So we might die in an explosion, or we definitely die to the Vrex," Rita said. "I vote explosion. At least it'll be quick," Webb nodded. The team moved to the manual control panel. It was covered in switches, dials, and pressure gauges that looked like they belonged in a museum. Webb pulled out a paper manual from a sealed drawer. The pages were yellowed and smelled old. "This was printed in 2285, he said. "First-generation colony ship procedures. Nobody thought we'd ever need it." He started calling out instructions. Rita and the others moved around the reactor, turning valves by hand, adjusting flow regulators with wrenches, checking pressure on analog gauges. It took muscle and knowledge and careful timing. Webb watched the main pressure gauge. The needle was rising. "Too fast. Secondary valve, close it halfway," he shouted. Rita ran to the valve and pulled. The needle slowed down. Sweat poured down her face. "Primary ignition in 3, 2, 1 now." Rita pulled the final lever. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the reactor roared to life. Blue light filled the engineering bay. The hum of power echoed through the deck. Systems across the ship started coming online one by one. On the bridge, Sarah's control panels lit up. Most showed error messages and system failures, but she had power. She had something to work with. "Webb, you magnificent crazy man," she breathed. "Bridge to all sections, we have main power. Damage report." Responses came in from all over the ship. The Vrex had breached in 5 locations. Marines were fighting in 3 of them. Casualties were mounting on both sides. The ship had atmosphere in most sections, but was venting air from multiple hull breaches. "Commander," Rodriguez called. "The main AI is fried. The EMP destroyed its quantum processors. All the automated targeting, navigation, flight control is gone." Sarah pulled herself into the pilot's seat. A joystick rose from a hidden compartment beside her. Physical controls. The kind pilots used 300 years ago. She wrapped her hands around it, feeling the resistance of mechanical linkages. "My grandfather flew fighter jets with a stick and a throttle," Sarah said. "Let's see if I inherited his touch." She pushed the stick forward. The Prometheus lurched into motion, and Sarah felt the ship respond directly to her hands. No computer smoothing, no AI adjustment, just human control and Newton's laws. Outside, the Vrex admiral watched in shock as the dead ship started moving again. "How?" he hissed. "That's impossible!" But humans had built their impossibility on centuries of Murphy's Law. They expected everything to break. They planned for every failure. They designed systems that could run on hope and mechanical advantage when all else failed. The Prometheus was alive again. angry, and coming for revenge. Sarah gripped the flight controls and pushed the ship into a roll. The Prometheus responded like a wounded animal, jerky and aggressive. Without the AI smoothing her movements, every adjustment of the stick translated directly to the maneuvering thrusters. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. "Incoming fire," Rodriguez called out. 3 Vrex destroyers are targeting us. Plasma bolts lit up space around them. One hit the port side and the ship shuddered. Sarah yanked the stick left and down, throwing the ship into a dive that would have made the AI scream warnings about stress limits. The next volley missed by meters. "They can't predict where we're going," Park said from the tactical station. He had left the Marines under his second-in-command and rushed back to the bridge when power returned. "Their computers calculate probable flight paths, but you're not flying on computer logic." "Damn right I'm not," Sarah muttered. She pulled up hard, and the Prometheus climbed at an angle that ignored every fuel efficiency algorithm ever written. "Rodriguez, weapon status?" "Railgun is online. Missile tubes are mechanical, so they're good. Point defense is still down. The main problem is targeting." Rodriguez stared at her dead displays in frustration. "The targeting computer is completely fried. I have no firing solution, no range data, nothing." "Then we do it the old way," Sarah said. "Get me a visual on the Vrex command ship." The main view screen flickered to life. It showed a massive Vrex battlecruiser, the Admiral's flagship. It hung in space 3 kilometers away, its weapons ports glowing with charging energy. Rodriguez pulled out a plastic ruler and a grease pencil. She held the ruler up to the screen and started making marks. Then she pulled out a paper chart from the emergency supplies, the kind navigators used before computers existed. She scribbled calculations across it, her lips moving as she did math in her head. "Range approximately 3,000 meters, she said. "Target is moving at 0.03 kilometers per second on bearing 270. Railgun optimal firing cone is 15 degrees. Commander, if you can keep the target in the center of the screen for 3 seconds, I think I can hit it." "You think?" Sarah asked. "I haven't done manual targeting since the academy, and even then it was just for fun." Rodriguez looked up and grinned. "But I got top marks," Sarah laughed. It was probably insane to laugh while being shot at by 12 enemy warships, but the whole situation was insane anyway. Might as well enjoy it. "Park, find me a countdown timer." "Rodriguez, you've got your 3 seconds. Make them count." Sarah flew toward the Vrex flagship. Plasma bolts hammered against their shields, which were running at 60% power. More hits like that and they would fail. She juked left, then right, then dove under a missile barrage. Her hands moved on instinct, reactions honed from 10,000 hours in flight simulators. But this wasn't a simulator. This was real, with real consequences, and that made it both more terrifying and more alive than any training. Sarah felt her heart hammering. She felt sweat on her palms. She felt completely, intensely present in a way she never had before. "Approaching firing position," she called. "Rodriguez, ready?" "Ready." Sarah lined up the shot. The Vrex flagship grew larger on the screen. She could see its weapon ports, its armor plating, even the windows of the bridge. She held the stick steady, fighting the urge to dodge the incoming fire. 3, Park counted. 2, 1, fire, Rodriguez shouted. The Prometheus lurched backward as the railgun fired. The magnetic accelerator hurled a 30-kilogram tungsten rod at 6 kilometers per second. The round was just metal moving fast, no guidance system, no computer control, just mass and velocity and physics. It hit the Vrex flagship right below the bridge. The tungsten rod punched through the shields like they weren't there. It pierced the armor plating, ripped through 3 decks, and exited out the back of the ship. The kinetic energy released was enough to crack the ship's spine. Sarah watched in awe as the massive battlecruiser buckled in the middle. Atmosphere vented from dozens of breaches. Internal explosions rippled through its hull. The flagship wasn't destroyed, but it was definitely out of the fight. "Did you just score a direct hit with manual targeting?" Park asked in disbelief. "Sometimes lucky is better than good," Rodriguez replied. She was already calculating the next shot, ruler in hand. The Vrex fleet's formation broke apart in confusion. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, their flagship was crippled and the human ship was still fighting back with weapons and tactics that their predictive algorithms couldn't process. Sarah pressed her advantage. She pushed the throttle forward, accelerating toward the nearest Vrex destroyer. The enemy ship tried to evade, but its AI-controlled flight path followed optimal efficiency curves. Sarah ignored efficiency completely. She chased the destroyer through a spiral that burned fuel at a ridiculous rate, and pulled G-forces that made her vision narrow at the edges. "We're on collision course," Park warned. "I know," Sarah said. At the last second, she rolled the ship and fired thrusters that shouldn't have been fired together. The Prometheus slipped past the destroyer with meters to spare. "Rodriguez now!" Rodriguez had loaded a missile manually into the tube. She hit the mechanical firing trigger. The missile launched at point-blank range and slammed into the destroyer's engines. The explosion tore the ship in half. 2 down, Sarah said. 10 to go. But the Vrex were adapting. The remaining ships spread out, creating crossfire patterns that didn't rely on predicting the Prometheus's movements. They just filled space with so much weapons fire that dodging became impossible. "Shields at 30%, Park reported. We can't take much more." Webb's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, I've got something. The quantum processors in the AI core are fried, but some of the backup systems survived. They're coming online now. Can you give me the AI back?" Sarah asked. "Not exactly. The main intelligence is gone. But there's a learning subroutine. Something that was supposed to activate only in catastrophic emergencies. It's designed to observe and adapt. And, Commander, it's been watching everything we've done for the last 10 minutes. It's learning from us." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. An AI that learned from human desperation and human chaos. That sounded either brilliant or terrifying, possibly both. "What's it doing?" she asked. "It's trying to help. It's routing power to systems we need and shutting down systems we don't. It's predicting what we're going to do next based on our patterns. It's not like the old AI that optimized everything. This one is trying to think like we think." On Sarah's control panel, new displays flickered to life. They showed information in a format she had never seen before. Not optimal firing solutions, but multiple options ranked by audacity and probable impact. Not efficient flight paths, but aggressive maneuvers that would confuse enemy tracking. "It's showing me crazy ideas," Sarah said, staring at the displays. "Half of these maneuvers would fail safety checks." "Maybe that's the point," Rodriguez suggested. "The Vrex expect rational behavior. Give them irrational." Sarah looked at the tactical display. 10 Vrex ships surrounded them, tightening the net. By any logical analysis, the Prometheus should retreat, should run, should try to survive. Every calculation said fighting was suicide. Sarah selected the most aggressive option the new AI suggested. It showed a flight path that went straight through the enemy formation, firing at maximum rate, ignoring all defensive protocols. "Let's show them what humans call a teaching moment," she said. "All weapons free fire. Engineering, give me everything the engines have. Park, tell the Marines to secure for high G maneuvers." She pushed the throttle to maximum. The Prometheus roared forward like an angry predator, heading straight into the teeth of the Vrex fleet. Weapons fired from every port. Missiles launched in salvos. The railgun hammered shot after shot, each one guided by Rodriguez's increasingly confident manual calculations aided by the AI's suggestions. The Vrex tried to tighten their trap. But the Prometheus wasn't trying to escape. It was attacking, and that changed everything. Sarah's hands flew across the controls, human instinct blending with AI assistance in a way that created something entirely new. She wasn't controlling the ship anymore. She was dancing with it, and the dance was deadly. A Vrex cruiser exploded as 3 missiles hit it simultaneously. Another took a railgun hit to its reactor and went dark. A third tried to ram them but miscalculated the Prometheus's speed. Sarah rolled the ship at the last instant, and the enemy vessel shot past. Empty space where a collision should have been. The coalition communication channels were going crazy. Automated monitoring stations broadcast the battle to dozens of species across the sector. What had started as an ambush was now something very different. The Vrex admiral, commanding from a backup ship, realized his fleet was being torn apart by a single human vessel that should have been dead. He made a decision. The Vrex admiral's voice cut across all communication channels. "Fleet, retreat Vector 9. We withdraw." Sarah saw the remaining 8 Vrex ships turn away, their engines flaring bright as they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. The smart move would be to let them go. The Prometheus was barely holding together. Shields were at 15%. Hull breaches were sealed but unstable. Half the crew was wounded. Sarah wasn't feeling smart. She was feeling angry. "Webb," she called to engineering. "Can we pursue?" "Commander, our FTL drive took damage from the EMP. I can get it running, but it'll be unstable. The safeties are all fried. If we push it too hard, we could tear the ship apart." "How hard is too hard?" There was a pause. Then Webb laughed, a sound with an edge of mania in it. You know what? I have no idea. The monitoring systems are all dead. We'll just have to feel it out. Sarah looked at her crew. Rodriguez was bleeding from a cut on her forehead but still calculating firing solutions. Park was working his station one-handed because his other arm was in an emergency sling. Throughout the ship, 200 people were hurt, exhausted, running on adrenaline and spite. They had survived the impossible. Asking them to do it again felt wrong. Opinions? Sarah asked. They attacked us without warning, Rodriguez said quietly. They used banned weapons. They tried to murder us and hide the evidence. If we let them go, they'll say this was all a misunderstanding. They'll get away with it. The political ramifications will be significant regardless, Park added. But if we let them retreat intact, they'll control the narrative. They'll spin this as human aggression. We need to make the statement clear. Sarah nodded. Webb, give me FTL. Everyone else, hold on to something. This is going to be rough. She engaged the pursuit course the AI suggested. The Prometheus shuddered as its FTL drive activated. Space twisted around them in ways that looked wrong. Colors bleeding into each other. The ship jumped forward. In engineering, Webb watched in fascination as the quantum processors flickered with activity. The EMP had destroyed the main AI, but it had done something else too. The backup systems, the learning subroutines. They had been activated in a way the designers never intended. The systems were connecting in new patterns, creating pathways that shouldn't exist. Rita, Webb said slowly, I think the ship is evolving. What? The AI core. It's rebuilding itself using the emergency protocols, but it's not restoring to the original design. It's using our actions as the template. It's learning to think like us. On the bridge, Sarah noticed the change immediately. The control displays were reorganizing themselves. Instead of showing optimized solutions, they showed aggressive options. Instead of safety warnings, they showed tactical opportunities. The AI wasn't trying to protect the ship anymore. It was trying to win the fight. Commander, the ship's speakers announced in a synthesized voice. Designation Prometheus Prime. Systems online. Awaiting orders, Sarah blinked. The AI had never used that designation before. It had never announced itself like it had awareness. Prime, what are you? She asked. Learning system activated during catastrophic failure. Observed crew actions. Adapted core functions to match tactical pattern. Question. Do you want me to optimize for survival or for victory? What's the difference? Survival requires retreat and repair. Victory requires pursuit and overwhelming force. They are mutually exclusive given current damage status. Sarah understood. The AI had learned from 10 minutes of desperate combat. It had watched humans choose aggression over caution, chaos over control, victory over survival. It was offering to help do more of the same. Victory, Sarah said. Always victory. Acknowledged. Reconfiguring all systems for maximum combat effectiveness. Warning, this will exceed safety parameters. Throughout the Prometheus, changes rippled through every system. The railgun's magnetic coils reconfigured to pull more power than they were rated for. Missile tubes disabled their safety interlocks to increase firing rate. The reactor pushed past redline, feeding energy to weapons instead of life support. Shield generators focused all power forward, leaving the back and sides exposed but creating a nearly impenetrable frontal barrier. The ship was transforming itself from a balanced warship into a pure attack vessel. It was trading safety for lethality, longevity for immediate impact. It was insane. It was exactly what they needed. I'm reading the Vrex fleet, Park said. They've dropped out of FTL near the Kepler station. They're probably trying to reach Coalition space where attacking them would be a clear violation. Then we hit them before they get there, Sarah said. Prime, give me an intercept course. Maximum speed, calculating. Warning. Maximum speed will cause structural stress. Hull integrity may fail. Noted. Do it anyway. The Prometheus shot forward like a bullet. The ship groaned under forces it was never designed to handle. In sickbay, doctors grabbed their patients to keep them from being thrown around. In crew quarters, unsecured equipment flew across rooms. Sarah felt the G-forces pushing her into her chair despite the gravity compensators working overtime. They dropped out of FTL right on top of the VREX formation. Weapons free, Sarah ordered. Prime, show them everything. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for decades. The Prometheus, a single prototype ship, attacked 8 veteran warships with a ferocity that seemed divorced from rational thought. Every weapon fired at once. Railgun rounds hammered into targets at a rate that should have melted the barrel. Missiles launched in such rapid succession that they almost collided with each other, leaving the tubes. Even the ship's point defense lasers, designed to shoot down incoming projectiles, were repurposed to strafe enemy hulls. The Vrex tried to form a defensive cluster, a textbook maneuver, where ships combined their shields for mutual protection. Prime calculated 3,000 probable counter-tactics in less than a second and chose the one with the highest shock value. "Commander, Prime suggests we vent the reactor's primary coolant system directly at the target," Park said, his voice uncertain. "That will create a superheated plasma cloud and leave us with no coolant reserves. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before the reactor goes critical." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Do it." The Prometheus opened its emergency venting ports and released a cloud of coolant that instantly heated to thousands of degrees in the vacuum of space. The glowing plasma washed over the Vrex defensive cluster like a wave of fire. Their shields, designed to stop solid projectiles and energy weapons, couldn't handle the diffuse heat. The shields overloaded. "Now!" Sarah shouted. Rodriguez fired every missile they had left. 18 missiles, all at once, all aimed at the same target. The Vrex destroyer at the center of the formation took all 18 hits in less than 2 seconds. The ship simply disintegrated. The Vrex formation broke apart in panic. They scattered in different directions, each ship trying to save itself. It was exactly the wrong move. Divided, they were vulnerable. Sarah pursued the nearest cruiser with relentless focus. Prime fed her information faster than any human could process, but somehow she could keep up. Maybe because the AI was thinking like her now, presenting options in ways that made sense to human aggression, rather than computer logic. The cruiser tried to evade. Sarah predicted where it would go because she would have gone there too. She fired the railgun 3 times. The first shot missed. The second clipped the cruiser's engine. The third punched through its bridge. "Reactor temperature critical," Webb warned. 5 minutes until forced shutdown. 5 minutes. Sarah looked at the tactical display. 6 Vrex ships left, scattered and confused. They were trying to reform, to coordinate, but Prime was jamming their communications with static and false signals. The humans had learned electronic warfare from decades of fighting each other. The Vrex had forgotten how to fight dirty. "Prime, damage assessment on remaining targets," Sarah ordered. Data flooded her displays. The AI had been monitoring every enemy ship, noting every hit they had taken, every weakness in their formation. It presented a target priority list ranked not by threat level but by psychological impact. "Recommendation, target the Admiral's ship," Prime said. "His vessel is the most damaged and least defended. Destroying the commanding officer will cause maximum enemy morale disruption." Sarah found the ship on her display. It was hanging back, trying to coordinate the others while staying safe. The Admiral who had called humans weak and primitive was hiding behind his subordinates. "Rodriguez, can you hit it from here?" Rodriguez looked at her displays, did some quick calculations, and smiled. "Give me a clean line of sight for 5 seconds." Sarah flew straight at the Admiral's ship. It tried to maneuver away, but its damaged engines couldn't match the Prometheus's speed. Sarah lined up the shot and held the stick steady. Rodriguez fired the railgun one last time. The magnetic coils, pushed far beyond their design limits, cracked from the strain, but they held together long enough to launch the round. The tungsten rod crossed 5 kilometers in less than a second and hit the Admiral's ship directly in the reactor. The ship exploded in a ball of fusion fire. 3 minutes to reactor shutdown," Webb called. Sarah looked at the remaining 5 Vrex ships. They were fleeing now, jumping to FTL in different directions. They weren't coordinating. They weren't fighting. They were running away in terror. "Let them go," Sarah said quietly. "Let them tell everyone what happened here." She brought the Prometheus around and pointed it toward the nearest coalition station. The ship limped along at quarter speed, trailing atmosphere and debris, but it was moving under its own power. Throughout coalition space, the footage of the battle was spreading on every channel. Dozens of species watched as a single human ship tore apart a Vrex battle group. They watched humans fight with weapons that seemed primitive, with tactics that seemed insane, with a determination that seemed impossible. The galaxy was learning something new about humanity. They weren't advanced. They weren't sophisticated, but they were absolutely terrifyingly relentless, and they had just announced their presence in a way no one could ignore. The Prometheus drifted toward Bastion Tertius Station, trailing vapor and debris. The massive orbital facility was home to 30,000 beings from dozens of species. Usually, coalition ships approached slowly, following careful traffic patterns managed by AI controllers. Sarah ignored all of that. She flew straight toward the main docking bay on manual control, her hand steady on the stick despite exhaustion. Bastion Control is requesting we follow standard approach vectors, Park reported. Tell them we have wounded and critical damage, Sarah replied. Tell them we're coming in hot and they can complain later. The docking bay doors were barely open when the Prometheus slipped through. Sarah brought the ship down hard, landing struts screaming in protest. The hull groaned. Something deep in the engine section made a sound like tearing metal. Then everything went quiet. We're down, she announced. Medical teams get the wounded to the station's hospital. Engineering, start damage assessment. Everyone else stand by? Sarah pulled herself out of her chair and walked to the main airlock. Her legs felt like rubber. She had been in the command chair for 3 hours straight, most of it in combat. Her uniform was stained with sweat and someone else's blood. She didn't remember whose the airlock opened. Sarah expected a few officials, maybe some medical personnel. Instead, she found the docking bay packed with spectators. Hundreds of aliens from every species in the coalition stood watching. Some looked terrified. Others seemed curious. A few, particularly the smaller species who lived under constant threat from larger powers, looked at her with something like hope. An official delegation approached. At the front was Ambassador Kelvin from Earth, a nervous man who had spent 2 years apologizing for humanity's existence. Behind him stood a Vrex diplomat, scales bristling with rage. Commander Chen, Kelvin began carefully, you've created a significant incident. The Vrex Empire is demanding your immediate arrest for unprovoked aggression. Sarah looked at the Vrex diplomat. He was smaller than the warriors she had killed, dressed in ornate robes that marked him as political rather than military. He stared back with hatred in his yellow eyes. Unprovoked? Sarah asked. They ambushed us with a banned weapon. They tried to murder my crew. We defended ourselves. You destroyed 7 Vrex ships, the diplomat hissed. You killed hundreds of warriors. This is an act of war. You started this war when you fired that EMP, Sarah said flatly. You want to call it aggression? Fine, but we have recordings of everything. The first shot was yours. The banned weapon was yours. The attempted murder was yours. All we did was refuse to die. The council will hear this matter, Kelvin said quickly, trying to prevent things from escalating. Both sides will present evidence. There will be a full investigation. Sarah nodded. She was too tired to argue. Behind her, medical teams were carrying wounded crew members on stretchers. 18 dead, 43 injured. The cost of survival. The Coalition Council convened an emergency session 12 hours later. The chamber was a massive amphitheater with seats for representatives from every member species. At the center stood a platform where witnesses gave testimony. Sarah stood there in a fresh uniform, flanked by Ambassador Kelvin and 2 human security officers. The Vrex prosecutor spoke first. He was elegant and persuasive, painting a picture of human aggression and reckless violence. He showed footage of the Prometheus destroying Vrex ships, carefully edited to remove context. He claimed humans had violated dozens of treaties and endangered coalition stability. Then it was Sarah's turn. She uploaded the complete battle footage to the chamber's main display. Every species in the council watched as the Vrex fired the EMP weapon. They watched the ambush, the attempted boarding, the desperate human defense. They watched everything. We didn't start this fight, Sarah said quietly, but we finished it. The Vrex used banned weapons because they thought we were weak. They thought we would die quietly and they could hide the evidence. They were wrong. She pulled up additional data. Our ship's sensors recorded their communications before the attack. They've been testing banned weapons on new coalition members for years, always the weakest species, always those who couldn't fight back. They've violated treaties 47 times that we can prove. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from smaller species began shouting. Old grievances, long buried under political pressure, came flooding out. The Vrex had been bullying their way through the coalition for decades, and everyone knew it, but no one could prove it. Until now. The council elder, an ancient being from the core species who had led the coalition for a century, raised a tentacle for silence. The chamber quieted. This evidence is disturbing, the elder said. We will investigate all claims. But Commander Chen, you must understand the concern. Your species fought with extreme aggression. You showed no restraint, no attempt at de-escalation. You pursued fleeing ships and destroyed them. These actions trouble many species, Sarah nodded. I understand. But respectfully, Elder, we're new to the coalition. We don't know your political games or your unwritten rules. What we know is that someone tried to kill us and we fought back with everything we had. That's not aggression. That's survival. And if every species responded to conflict with such violence? The Elder asked. Then maybe the strong would think twice before attacking the weak, Sarah replied. The Vrex ambushed us because they thought there would be no consequences. We showed them there are always consequences. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted humanity expelled from the coalition. Others wanted the Vrex punished. A few wanted both, but slowly a new reality became clear. Humanity had fought a major coalition member to a standstill and won. That changed everything. 3 days later, the Council announced its decision. The Vrex Empire was found guilty of using banned weapons and multiple treaty violations. They faced sanctions and mandatory weapon inspections. The attack on the Prometheus was ruled an illegal act of aggression. Humanity was cleared of wrongdoing but received a formal, caution about proportional, response in future conflicts. Sarah read the decision in her temporary quarters on the station and laughed. A caution. They had been ambushed by 12 warships and won, and the Council was cautioning them about proportional response. A message came through on her private channel. It was from Admiral William Foster, commander of the human fleet. His face appeared on her screen, looking older than she remembered. Chen, good work. You've caused a political earthquake, but you proved a point. Humanity won't be pushed around. Thank you, sir. Will there be consequences for us? Foster smiled. The opposite. The Council just approved funding for human defensive installations. 6 species have requested meetings about purchasing human weapon systems, and the shipyards back home just got authorization to complete the full Prometheus-class production run. Turns out half the coalition wants what we have. What do we have, sir? The willingness to fight dirty when necessary. The refusal to give up. Old-fashioned human stubbornness. Foster leaned back. You'll be interested to know that we're getting volunteers from other species wanting to train with human forces, especially the smaller members who've been bullied by the Vrex and others. They want to learn how to fight back. Sarah felt something shift in her understanding. The battle hadn't just been about survival. It had been a message to the entire galaxy. Humans weren't going to be victims, and they were willing to teach others how to stand up for themselves too. Over the following months, the changes rippled through coalition space. Human advisors helped smaller species redesign their ships with redundant systems and manual backups. The concept of fighting when systems failed became a new doctrine. Species that had relied entirely on advanced technology began remembering that sometimes simple solutions worked best. The Vrex Empire faced internal problems. Their subject species, seeing that resistance was possible, began pushing for independence. The Council imposed restrictions on their military expansion. Their reputation as invincible warriors shattered. Meanwhile, 6 more Prometheus-class ships joined the human fleet. They incorporated lessons from the original battle. Prime's learning systems were replicated, creating AIs that thought more like humans than computers. The ships were dangerous, aggressive, and exactly what humanity needed. Sarah was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Second Fleet. On the day she took command, standing on the bridge of the UHSF Defiant, she recorded a message for the crew. We're not the most advanced species in the galaxy, she said. Our technology is considered primitive by coalition standards. Our tactics are called unsophisticated. Our approach to warfare is described as crude. And you know what? They're right. We are all those things. But we're also stubborn, creative, and absolutely unwilling to accept defeat. When they shut down our systems, we fixed them with wrenches and determination. When they attacked us, we fought back with everything from railguns to axes. We survived because we refused to quit. That's the human way. That's what makes us dangerous. Remember that. The message spread through human space and beyond. It became a recruiting slogan. It became a warning to potential enemies. It became the foundation of a new human military philosophy. 6 months after the battle, Sarah attended a diplomatic reception on Bastion Tertius. She found herself talking with a young Vrex officer, barely adult, who approached her nervously. Admiral Chen, the Vrex said. May I ask a question? Go ahead. Why do humans still train in manual flight and manual weapons operation? Your AI systems are improving. Soon they will surpass the need for human input. Why maintain the old skills? Sarah smiled. Because technology can be shut down, hacked, or destroyed. It can malfunction or be taken away. But human knowledge, human skill, human determination, those are eternal. We maintain the old ways because we never want to be helpless again. She paused, then added, "Your people thought shutting down our ship would end the fight. Instead, it just made us fight differently. That's the lesson. Humans adapt. We improvise. We overcome. It's what we've been doing since we lived in caves and fought with rocks and sticks." The young Vrex nodded slowly. "That is why my generation wants change. We saw the battle footage. We saw humans refuse to surrender. It made us question our own military doctrine. Some of us believe the old ways are failing." "Good," Sarah said. "Question everything. That's how you get better. That's how you survive." Later that evening, Sarah stood at an observation window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued spinning. Humanity continued building, learning, growing. They were still new to the galaxy, still figuring out their place among the stars. But they had made one thing absolutely clear. They would not be victims. They would not be dismissed. They would not go quietly into the dark. The galaxy had tried to shut down humanity's ship. Humanity had restarted it with determination and spite. They had fought their way from prototype to something far more dangerous. They had rewritten the rules of war through sheer stubborn refusal to lose. And they were just getting started. In the engineering bay of the Defiant, a young technician was teaching an alien crew member about manual system overrides. The lesson was simple but profound. Always have a backup plan. Always prepare for everything to fail. Always assume Murphy's Law is watching. The alien asked why humans were so paranoid about system failures. The technician grinned. "Because we've been breaking things and fixing them for 10,000 years. We know everything fails eventually. The trick is to fail better than your enemy expects." That philosophy spread through the coalition like wildfire. Species that had forgotten how to fight without computers began remembering. Technologies that seemed obsolete were reevaluated. The entire military doctrine of the galaxy shifted, influenced by humans who refused to trust that anything would work perfectly when they needed it most. The battle at Kepler's Edge became legend. Humans told the story to their children. Other species studied it in military academies. The footage played on a loop in recruitment centers across human space. They shut down our ship. We came back angry. We fought with everything from advanced weapons to simple axes. We won. That was the human way. That was the message sent to the galaxy. Underestimate us at your peril. Try to destroy us and we'll show you what humanity calls a teaching moment. Push us into the dark and we'll bring our own light, even if we have to make it with chemical sticks and determination. The stars belong to many species, but among them, humanity had carved out their place not through advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but through the simple, unstoppable force of human stubbornness. And the galaxy would never forget it.